everybody. My name is Megan, and I would like to welcome you to the Fiber of My Being podcast. This is a podcast that I recently started. I believe this is episode 6 now. I could be wrong. But it's a knitting podcast, but also crochet and spinning and a little bit of yarn dyeing and whatever else strikes my fancy. I'm just a general fiber nerd. So, this is a podcast following my progress in different projects that I'm making and trying new experiences. And I should mention right now, since I hear them tearing through the house, and you might be able to as well, that I have 3 cats, two of whom are out and about right now. I guess I should give you more information. I'm really bad at introducing myself. So, as I said, my name is Megan, and I live in Pennsylvania with my husband, Paul, and our 3 cats. We have an 8-year-old tuxedo cat named Mary, and then a 3.5-year-old gray tabby named Esther, and we just adopted a 6-month-old kitten named Agatha, who is also a tuxedo kitten. And so Esther and Agatha, the 2 younger ones, have started being rather fond playmates. They love to chase each other over the house. We were worried it might be fighting at first, but we're pretty sure that they are both enjoying it because they can chase each other for hours on end, and neither of them gets mad or hisses or growls or anything. And that's not usual for Esther. She usually growls at every cat. So we think that they actually like each other, which is wonderful. But the 3rd cat, Mary, is not out. She is in her own bedroom right now because she is an older cat and she's a little bit tired of the kittens chasing her around everywhere. So, sorry, the cats were play fighting at my feet. Anyway, so yes, that's a little bit about me and probably all you ever needed to know about my cats. They consume a lot of my time and energy because I love them a lot. So, so a little bit about where you can find me. You can find me on Ravelry as Fiber of My Being, and on Instagram as Megan Tomkeel, and I will write both of those things in the description. And I also started a Ravelry group, so if you enjoy this podcast, please go over there and join, and just chat with me, and feel free to contact me on YouTube here, or Ravelry, or Instagram. Chat with me if you've got questions or something to say to me. I'd love to hear from you. So, I'm so sorry for all of my, muttering and ums and uhs. I'm still not really, this whole podcasting thing still makes me a little bit nervous every single time, so I'm trying to get more comfortable with it. But yeah, so without further ado, how about I move on to my finished objects, one of which I'm wearing. If you've been watching my previous podcasts, you'll know that I've been working on this scarf for quite some time. This is the Baby's Breath scarf by Yumiko Alexander. It's from the book Rustic Modern Knits. And it's knit out of, I remember what I was going to say now. It's knit out of Drops Lace, which is a 70% alpaca, 30% silk yarn. And it's in this, kind of bluish gray, green color way. It's not labeled on the yarn band, but it's just this really pretty bluish color. And as you can see, the one end of this scarf has this lovely lace detail with lovely noop stitches. And this was included in my finished objects last week too, because I had cast it off last week. But between last week and this week, I managed to block it. So now the kind of bubbles formed by the decreases into this daisy chain section, and then the increases into the stockinette section, the bubbles lay in a lot nicer, and it's a lot more drapey and a lot longer. And I will just kind of stand up a little bit here so you can see the ends. I kind of blocked out the ruffles so they look a little more uniformly ruffly and a little less all over the place. More of a ruffle than a wave now. So yeah, I'm really, really happy with how this turned out. And it's getting a little colder, so a lace weight scarf might not be the best thing to keep me warm, as fall is turning into winter soon. But I am excited to keep it and wear it. I think this would look great come springtime. A nice light scarf for those kind of chilly spring days. So, and I can still get a little bit of wear out of it now. So I'm really, really happy with it. So that's my first FO. I also went a little bit hat crazy this week. That seems to be a common theme for me. I tend to, I knit a lot of hats. I knit some other things too, but like, I know I've seen a lot of podcasters that always have socks going or things like that. I always have hats going. It's one of my favorite things to knit. Maybe it's because I have a lot of bad hair days and I'm eager to have lots of different hats to cover it up with, but I really like knitting hats. And I like all the shapes and traditions of hats. And therefore, I knit 3 hats this week. So, first off, I will show you the finished Jane hat. This pattern is the Cunning Jane hat by Kayla Renee. And it is based off of, for all of you nerdy knitters out there, it's based off of the hat that Jane Cobb wears in the TV show Firefly. If you haven't seen that show, you should watch it because it's wonderful and it's just great. My husband and I are a big fan of Joss Whedon shows, and we're currently working through Buffy, which will lead me into another goal knitting project that I'm hoping to start in the near future, but more for that later. So this Jane hat, this was knit for my husband particularly. I will put it on my head so that you can see kind of what it looks like, but my husband has a big head and I don't so much, so it's going to look a little bit funny on me. I guess just a little slouchy. But I finished this the other night and I had my husband try it on. He actually cut the strings at the end of the hat because the person who designed this pattern tried to make it look as homemade and wonderful as the hat in the original. And one of the things she said was that it looked like Ma Cobb had just not sewn in the ends at the bottom of the scarf, or the hat. So the designer of this pattern just let her ends hang as well. But to give it a little more integrity, what I did was I sewed in the ends on the hat, and then I tied a couple strands and knotted them at the bottom, like a little mini tassel, and then I let my husband, he wanted the ends to be kind of uneven, so I let him cut that. He put the finishing touches on the hat, and he was super excited about that. And as soon as he finished this hat, cutting the strings, he put it on his head and didn't take it off the whole time that we were finishing our episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. So I think he likes it. He's been wearing it a lot. As the TV show says, a man walks down the street in a hat like this, people know he's not afraid of anything. And my husband is just loving this. stockinette ear flaps just kind of roll up by themselves a little bit, which normally you wouldn't really want your ear flaps to be rolling. You'd probably knit a like selvage along the edge to balance the stitches so that it's not rolling all over the place. But this is how the hat looks in the show, and so it's pretty wonderful. I like it a lot. And I don't know if you can see, I'm going to take it off my head now because it's easier to show you. They told me to make the pom-pom with red and just a little bit of yellow and orange, and somehow my pom-pom came out with yellow and orange stripes in 2 places going along it, and then the rest of it is red. So it's kind of like a color-blocked pom-pom, which is not technically how the pom-pom looks from the show, but I really like how it turned out. It's really unique and kind of one of a kind, and my husband likes it too. And I left it kind of scraggly. I know there are, well, that came out, but I know there are a bit of long sections in the pom-pom, but I thought that just added to the homemade effect. So I'm really, really happy with how this turned out. And I think I forgot to mention, this is knit out of Woolies, which is 80% acrylic, 20% wool. And so I knit it with this bright red color, and then I think this is called pumpkin, and this is called gold for the colorways. So really happy with how this turned out. I've been telling my husband I would knit him a Jane hat since he introduced me to Firefly like 2 or 3 years ago. So I finally did it. The only problem I had was I knit the number of rounds that it called for in the pattern, and the hat ended up a little too small for my husband's head. It was a little too shallow. So I just ripped out the bind off and knit a few more rounds to make it longer. But if I had known that I was going to have to add some length to the hat, I probably would have knit a few more rows of orange so that the stripe was a little bigger, because in the hat it is more like almost halfway up the hat. But I still think it's very clearly a Jane hat, and so does my husband, and he loves it. So very happy about this. So that's hat number 1 for this week for my husband. Hat number 2 is for me. And I'm knocking hat number 3 onto the ground. Sorry about that. Let me see which way this goes. Alright, so hat number 3 is this. I don't even think I cast this on last week. I know I didn't cast this on as of last week because when my phone cut me off last week and wouldn't let me finish filming my stash enhancements, I was going to say about how I got some of this white yarn so that I could knit this hat. So I hadn't started knitting it last week. But this is the Snowflake Hat, and I completely forgot to write down the information about who designed this. I'm fairly certain it was designed by one of the major yarn companies. I don't want to say Patterns because I don't think that's right, but I will put it in the video here and in the description below so that you can find this hat if you want. But I've just been really wanting to knit this sort of like Scandinavian inspired, some places they call this a star pattern and some places they call it a snowflake. I tend to think of it more as a snowflake. And I've just really been wanting to knit a hat like this with the Scandinavian star pattern, specifically in red and white, because I just love the contrast and I love the look of it. And I found this pattern and it was free. Most of the patterns I knit are free. Just, I don't think I've mentioned usually. I think I will mention if a pattern is a paid pattern, but a lot of times, well, I'm a broke grad student, and there are a lot of great free patterns out there, so I like to take advantage of that. So, this is a free pattern. Like I said, Snowflake. And this is knit out of Patton's Classic Worsted Wool. I had the red color already, and like I said, I just needed to get a ball of the white yarn, the white Pattons, so that I had enough to knit this hat. And I'm really, really happy with how it turned out, with this lovely pom-pom on top, and the beautiful braided ties. And I got to do some reverse single crochet around the edging, also known as crab stitching. And I just really loved playing with different colors and using more than one yarn at the same time. Because until this week, when I made this Jane hat and this hat, I'd only ever made single color pom-poms. So this was the first time that I made pom-poms with more than one color in them. And I've really enjoyed the process, especially since I have pom-pom makers now that are easy to use and nice and fun. So yeah. Is there anything else I need to say about this hat, other than how much I love it? I don't think so. I will put the information in the description. I'm sorry I didn't write this down. Kind of forgot. But I'm just so happy with how this hat turned out. So yeah. Hat number 2. Hat number 3 won't be sticking around for long, but I did keep it to show you. So I showed you I was knitting this before, but I finished the Balaclava. This is the Balaclava Ulan cap by the New England Seafarers Mission. And this was actually a test cap that I knit up so that I could try it on my head and try it on my husband's head to see if both would fit. And actually, it does fit pretty well on both of our heads. It's super stretchy, so it fits around both of our heads. The only thing that I will have to change for my husband's is that I'm going to make it just a smidge longer, because it doesn't come quite down to covering his neck because his head is a little bigger. So I'll just knit another inch or two before I divide for the face hole. So I'll show you what this looks like on. Basically, it makes me look like Cookie Monster. Or a really awesome ninja. So, it fits. It looks pretty classic and nice. I can pull it down so that you can actually see me talking. Or I can pull it up and just look awesome, like a ninja. But the reason why I did not sew in the ends yet is because I don't think I'm actually going to keep this hat. I think I'm going to frog it because I knit it out of Woolies again, the 80/20 acrylic wool, and my husband and I both agreed it's just a little too scratchy around our necks for it to be practical for us to wear it, which was another reason why I knit this tester balaclava. So I'm glad that I knit this, because then I could know that I need to knit a little bit longer for my husband and all that. I'm going to take this off now because it is pretty warm. But I'm glad I knit it. I got good practice on how to knit the balaclava. And so I'm probably going to frog this and use the yarn for something else then, because don't want to waste the yarn. But yeah, so it's an FO, but it's going to go away soon. And it just looks like Cookie Monster. So that's all my finished objects for this week. And I will move on to works in progress, of which there are a few that are almost finished. So first off, is if you watched the end of my last video where my husband and I were going on a vacation road trip, you will have seen the project that I started and put and brought with me as a traveling project. So this is crochet, and this is the granny shawl. It's upside down too. There we go. The granny shawl. It's super long. So I don't usually do a lot of granny stitch things, but I don't know why. When I saw this shawl and how it tapers, and then there's a border that will go around the whole thing in this brownish color, I just felt really drawn to crochet it because I just really liked the way it turned out. It looked kind of like really homemade, and it seems like it would go with my sense of style. Not that I have much sense of style, but it seems like something that I would wear and find cozy and comforting. So, and it seemed like an easy project, and one that would allow me to play with pairing different colors together. So there are 7 different colors in this, I believe. This is all red heart, actually, because I have a large stash of red heart, and I just figured bright colors, large quantities, it'll work. So, sorry, I haven't been sewing in my ends. That'll be fun later. It's got this brownish, this dark brown color. I believe it's called Cafe. And then this kind of lavender lilac color. I think it's called one of those things, but I can't tell you which. And then there's a hunter green. I know that's the name of that. There's this gold color. There's this, I want to say like a sky blue, but I don't know for sure the name. And then this like maroon burgundy color. And then tan, which is a little bit lighter. Up here you can see the cafe and the tan together. They're a little bit lighter than each other. So this thing is just super long. My preferred method of wearing it when I'm done will probably be to have it wrapped around like this for a nice, cozy, warm shawl scarf. So I'm actually really enjoying just the simple granny stitch. I was actually crocheting some of this in the dark in the car. I hear lots of people who like take knitting to movies, like to the movie theaters or something like that. And I always wonder how they do that because I wouldn't be able to see my stitches. But I'm finding it really easy to crochet this in the dark because all I have to look for is the next hole, and then I just do 3 double crochets into it, and everything's fine. So it's gradually tapering off. I had to frog a little bit of this last night actually because I missed the part where normally it decreases by 2 of these clusters per row, but at some point it starts decreasing by 3 of them per row. And I kind of missed that, so it wasn't decreasing as fast as it should have been. And I don't really want it to turn out as an actual triangle. So I frogged back about 7 rows last night and crocheted them again. That's where I'm at. And I think I forgot to say, this pattern is by Nanita on Ravelry. It's also a free pattern. And I'm just really enjoying it. If you don't really like the look of crochet usually, or if you don't do a lot of crocheting and you want something simple to just try out, I would highly recommend this pattern because it's just got that kind of classic look, and you can play around with pairing whatever colors you want. I'm just doing kind of a random order of my 7 colors, and it just works for some reason. Like I said, I don't normally do granny stitch, but I'm kind of liking it. So that's my first work in progress. second work in progress. I was trying so desperately to finish this last night, but I was just too tired. Does this look familiar? It should, because I just showed you the first one. This is one of my actual balaclavas that I won't be frogging. This one's for me, and it's made out of this lovely purple yarn that kind of has hints of pink and blue in it. I just really liked the way it looked. This is Cascade 220 Superwash, the worsted weight. So it's a lot softer on the face than the Woolies was. And my husband and I actually went to the store, to my local yarn shop together last week and picked out the yarns for this. So we both got Cascade 220 Superwash. I can show you his as well. He picked out this just nice neutral gray color, which I thought was a good idea too, because I didn't want to go with anything too dark. Otherwise it'll look like, if I knit it in black, it would look a lot like a ski mask, and then I feel like people would be suspicious, and that could end badly. So we wanted to go for something that looked more comfy cozy than I'm trying to rob you now. But my balaclava is almost done. I just have to do the decreases around the top. So I'm hoping that I can have this finished today. But we'll see. I'm not feeling the best today. I've been kind of really stuffy. It doesn't really sound like I'm stuffy, but I can't breathe through my nose at all. So I really should get a nap, but I might have to knit this instead. So, and again, this is by New England Seafarers Mission, the Balaclava Ulan Cap. So I'm excited to finish mine up and start knitting my husband's. Next up is something that I'm super excited about, like disproportionately excited about this thing. So, my husband recently discovered that he does like the taste of coffee. He didn't always used to, but he likes it now. And he will drink the occasional cup of coffee. I think he's up to drinking a cup maybe every other day. He's trying not to get too addicted to the caffeine, and just enjoy the taste of the coffee. But, so, when our friend Ellen, who gave me all of that wonderful yarn and fiber from last week's episode, when she was down visiting us from New England, from New Hampshire, she brought some mason jars full of coffee for my husband because she heard that he recently started drinking nice, good coffee. And she actually works at a coffee shop. So she brought some of their coffee. 3 lovely, huge jars full of different types of coffee for him to try out. And so, not having a coffee maker or anything, we went out to the store. And we decided to get him a French press. So that he can make coffee that way. That's kind of his preferred method of making coffee. And so as soon as he said he liked coffee and wanted to get a French press, I knew exactly what I could knit. Because I've had this pattern in my queue for so long, and I've had no real reason to want to knit it at all. Or, like, it just wouldn't make sense for me to knit it. Because I don't drink coffee, I don't have a French press, and what would be the point? But I have just wanted to knit this Dalek Cozy for so long, and I have now. So, this is the Caffeinate Cozy by, I'm probably going to butcher this name, so sorry, by Karina Blasco of Heathcote Road, and it's based off of course, the Daleks from Doctor Who. And I know this looks finished, but it's not quite, because I still have to crochet along the edge here, and add the buttons so that it can actually clip over the French press. But I had it on my husband's French press to try to make sure it would fit, and it fits so well, and it looks so lovely, and I am so glad that I finally had a reason to knit a Dalek Cozy for a French press. I'm pretty sure I'm more excited about this than my husband is. I mean, he likes Doctor Who too, but I was just so excited to knit a Dalek, and now I have, and it just makes me so happy. And this is knit out of Patton's Classic Worsted. It's the same ball of yarn actually as my Snowflake Hat. So I had to finish this up before I could start the Dalek Cozy. But I'm just so happy, and I hope that this is done by next week so that I can bring out my husband's French press and show it to you on the press, because it's just wonderful and I love it so much. Caffeinate. I'm sorry, I'm such a geek, guys. I'm really nerdy. Alright, next up, you will have seen this last week too, is the British Driving Knox by Anne Carroll Gilmore. It's from the book Knitting Hats and Mittens from Around the World. I apologize for all of the stringy bits, but I sort of finished my husband's first knuckle mitten, except that I had him try it on, and he wants me to shorten these 3 fingers just a little, which is kind of tough because I have to rip back, like this finger, the tail of this finger goes into knitting this finger, and then the tail of this finger goes into knitting this one. So I can't just like rip back each finger just a little bit and then knit it again. I have to rip back all 3 of these fingers, which is kind of annoying, but because I love him, I will do that for him. But I've just been kind of taking a break from this before I do that process. But I do have something that functions as a mitt. It's really long for my fingers because my husband also has bigger hands than I do. But I'm really happy with how it looks, at least. And I will be happier once I bite the bullet and shorten the knuckles. And then I can knit the other mitt. So, this is knit out of Simplicity by Haiku. This is 55% merino superwash, 28% acrylic, and 17% nylon. And this colorway is Seattle Sky. It's this lovely, just neutral gray. My husband wears a lot of neutrals, so I'm hoping to be able to at least finish this mitten this week so that I can find more joy in this and look forward to starting the other one, because right now I'm not really looking forward to all of the ripping back that I have to do. I don't really like ripping back after I've bound off. It makes me really stressed out. So if anyone knows any tips or tricks about how to rip back after you've bound off, please let me know. And hopefully that'll help with my mitten. Next up on my works in progress is the Wispy Willow cardigan. And I meant to get more work done on this than I actually have. But where is it? I put a stitch marker in here as a progress keeper. There it is. So, this is where I was as of the last podcast. So I have knit maybe an inch or so, but it's still not enough because I still need to, this has to be 21 inches long before I can do the ribbing at the bottom, and I don't think it's quite there yet. But I have been working on it, slow and steady. This pattern is by Cheryl Beckrich from the Love of Knitting magazine, Summer 2014 edition. And if I didn't say already, this is the Wispy Willow cardigan. So hopefully one of these days this will actually be a finished object. But at least it's not languishing on my needles anymore. I have been knitting it every week, even just a little bit. So, oh, the ball of yarn is all tangled around me. Story of my life. Next up is another project that had been languishing on my needles for a while, but I took this traveling with me as well. This didn't get as much love as the granny shawl did, but it did get some love. This is the Fraulein scarf by Pam Powers from the book Dress to Impress Knitted Scarves. And I had already had this this boucle section knit up before, and a little bit of the tie started, and so I have actually knit probably from there to up here of this tie. But then it got dark and I found it really hard to work on this because it's a more intricate lace pattern and my stitch count was coming up wrong, so I switched back to the granny shawl instead. But I have made some progress. The problem with these ties is that they have to be like super long because it's a really long scarf, long enough that you can tie a bow in it and it still has substantial ends hanging down. So, just gonna keep chugging along at this one too. And this is Loops and Threads Woolette. I don't remember the exact composition of this yarn, but I know it's a wool acrylic blend with maybe a little bit of polyamide for the string that holds the loops together. And then this is just Red Heart as well, because it's cheap and comes in large balls that are good for knitting the whole tie. So I'll keep working on that one as well. Whew. Okay. Anyone else getting tired yet? I'm getting tired. Alright, next up, I can barely call this a work in progress this week, but I did take it traveling with me and crochet like a couple rows, so technically it is, and it's all tangled on itself. This is the sleeve for my Natalie Shrug by Megan Granholm, and the book is, I believe, Simply Crochet. I'll put that in the description. And I did crochet a few more rows of this. This is Tunisian crochet. Nice griddle stitch pattern. And so I did crochet a little bit more of this, but this is still my first of the sleeves. So I still have to do another one before I can seam it all together. And this is crocheted out of Woolike from Michael's Loops and Thread brand. So this has been on my hook for a long time as well. That seems to be a common theme for me, is things that have been on my hook for a long time, and then projects that I cast on and finish in a week. So I'm gonna try and evaluate why I like certain projects better than others so I can enjoy my knitting a little bit more. But I am enjoying these things, they're just taking a while. So, excuse my reach. Everything's all over my couch and some of it's a little far away. I have 2 spinning works in progress this week. So, first is, of course, my Gotland that I'm spinning. Nice, just natural gray coloring. And I've kept spinning a bit of this. I still have, it's falling all over the place. I still have a decent amount of wool to spin. There's a lot of wool in here, and it's going a long way. But I have been working on it, much to the amusement of my yarn crazy kitten. And so yeah, but I've been slogging away at this Gotland spinning, and wanting to spin something else so badly, so I finally decided I would probably enjoy things more if I started spinning on my second spindle. So I did. I don't have much to show for this because I kind of started spinning at a bad time, but I did start spinning some of this lovely braid of merino tencel fiber. It's 50-50 merino and tencel, which is made from pine trees, I believe. And it's hand dyed by the Bauer family farm from Dauphin, PA. So I got this at a fiber festival last year, and I started spinning it. And when I see these colors, I just think that they look like a caramel apple, like a green apple, but so I think this is going to be my caramel apple yarn. So yeah, I haven't even covered up my leader yarn yet, but I have started it, and it makes me really happy. And it's not felted like the Gotland is, so it's a bit easier to spin. So, 2 spinning works in progress. I'm slow with spinning, but I do enjoy it. So, I believe that's all of my works in progress. Yes. Okay, so now, stash enhancement. So, I think I will take a slight break so that I can rearrange things a little, because if you can see, my stash enhancement is up there. And I don't want to have to like turn my back on the camera for long periods of time and grab all that yarn. So I'll take a little break, see where the crazy kittens are up to, where they are and what they're up to. And then I'll come back and show you my stash enhancement. Hey Aggie, are you excited that Mommy got new yarn? Because I am. So, she was going a little crazy, so I swapped this scarf for a kitten. Same thing, right? Cuddly and fuzzy and just a joy to be around. Except she wants to go and chase her sister, so I'm gonna let her. Say bye to the viewers, Agatha. Say bye. I might torture my cats just a little bit with how much I love them. Alright, so first up in stash acquisitions, I'm going to actually show you, sorry, I put everything a little too far away. First up in stash acquisitions, I'm going to show you the things that I got cut off from showing you last week. So when I went to the yarn store on a bad day, so that I could get a couple balls of white Patton's wool, the one which was for this, and the other one was for a dyeing project that I will show you in a minute, because I have dyed it up now. I went on a bad day, and they were having a sale, and so I came back with an armful of yarn, and I was bad. And so I got cut off, I think, while I was showing you this ball of yarn last week. So this is Woolly's Tonal. All 4 of these are the same Woolly's Tonal. It's 80% acrylic, 20% wool, and this is a bulky weight as opposed to the worsted weight of the regular Woolly's. And so this color is burnt orange, and I think it looks very like pumpkin spice. And like I was saying when I got so rudely cut off by my phone last week, I'm not so much a pumpkin spice person. I'm more of a caramel apple kind of person, hence why I love that my new spinning fiber looks like a caramel apple. And I like apple cider way more than pumpkin spice drinks. But I do enjoy the colors inspired by pumpkin spice. And I do like pumpkin, don't get me wrong. I just tend to like apple more. I grew up around apple orchards, so feels like home to me. So this is the burnt orange color. And then I also got this lovely lime. And I just love the tonal variations in all of these. And I got, this is called Amethyst, which is a nice purple. It's showing up kind of blue on the screen. I think it's because of my lighting in here. But when you see the blue, which is called Royal Blue, then it looks a bit more purple. So, Royal Blue. And I got 4 balls of this, and it was kind of bad, but it cheered me up to have an armful of yarn. I think that would cheer most knitters up, to have an armful of yarn. So, that's my first stash enhancement. I will also show you the reason I went in the first place was to get 2 balls of the Patton's wool, and I have dyed up the second ball into this. So, first I will tell you what it's for. A few years back, I knit my husband this hat, which he loves. It's a Trilobite hat. It's inspired by the fossil, the Trilobite, which is actually the state fossil of Pennsylvania. So it's geeky on multiple levels. And it's got these 4 trilobites all around the hat in lovely cables and garter ridges and bobbles and everything. I like it too, to be honest. My husband likes it, except that if you can see, it's kind of small even on my head. And so it's rather small on his head. It's really small. It doesn't even cover his ears. So I've been saying I want to knit him a new one because it doesn't really keep him very warm. So what I'm going to do is knit a new version of this hat with a longer rib and then more stockinette rows before the trilobite starts. Because I don't want to bump up the needles too much because I like it. I like the density of the fabric. So I'm just going to add more rows at the bottom because once you get into the trilobite section, you can't really, the decreases are built into the patterning here. So you can't really add rows without it looking like a super long trilobite. And this pattern is by Hannah Mason. It's on Ravelry, free also. So wonderful. And so when my husband was picking out the yarn for his first hat here, this is Woolies, and he picked out this light gray because he said it looked a lot like limestone, which is one of the types of rock found in Pennsylvania, and therefore one of the types of rock where you might find the trilobite. So when I asked him if he wanted a different color for his second hat, he said he would love a red shale hat, which is another common rock in Pennsylvania, really pretty, kind of this reddish brown color. And I couldn't find anything even remotely like that. So I dyed this red shale color out of Patton's worsted wool and food coloring. So I just basically like mixed all the colors to make brown and then added some extra red. So it's got just this lovely, it's a little bit variegated, but I think it'll turn out okay knit up into this hat. So I skeined it up. It's a really fat skein of yarn, but that's good because I'll be able to knit a longer hat for him then. Sorry if you noticed the world kind of shaking there for a second. Agatha attacked the table that my phone is sitting on, so it kind of went all over the place. So I've dyed up this yarn, and I'm hoping to cast on the Trilobite this week. I just need to get yarn off of my Swift that's been sitting on there for a while so that I can cake this up and knit it. Kitten. She's chasing this. there she goes. Alright, so the second stash enhancement I have is super exciting. So I showed you the card I got last week from the girl that I knit the Santa stocking for. And in the card she sent me payment as well. The agreed upon payment, which was very generous and nice, thank you. And so I was looking and I was like, this is enough for me to buy some sweater quantity of yarn for a sweater that I want to knit. So I did. I bought a sweater quantity. Which of these bags is open? There we go. So this is Nitpicks Wool of the Andes. The colorway is Brass Heather, which I really like. It's kind of this like brownish, brassy yellow. It just looks neutral but also colorful. And it's a color I don't have a lot of in my stash and in my wardrobe. So I'm excited. It looks very fall-like. This is, of course, 100% Peruvian Highland wool, worsted weight. And I want to knit out of this a honeycomb Aran, which I think is a Patons pattern, but I could be wrong about that. I will tell you more about the actual pattern once I start knitting it. But I got many balls of this yarn so that I can knit that sweater, because I really want to knit a nice, cozy, cable-y, classic looking sweater. So I can now. And so I placed an order with Nitpicks for this, and with the little bit of leftover money from that too, I also got a few more things. So I also got my first, this was the first time I've ever bought Wool of the Andes from Nitpicks. And then I also got my first palette yarn. This is fingering weight, 100% Peruvian Highland wool. And I got not one, not two, but 3 of them. This is upside down. Sorry about that. This is the cyan colorway. Lovely blue. And this is macaw, which is this bright, super saturated green. And then I got just a neutral cream color. I'm trying to block the light a little over here. And so what I'm thinking about doing with these together, these are colors that I normally wouldn't put together, but that's why I went with the palette yarn and with the pattern that I'm planning on for this, because I wanted to play around with pairing more colors together. So this is hopefully going to be a tailwind shawl. I believe the pattern is by Clara Falk, but I will put that in the description and I'll tell you more about it when I cast it on. And believe me, I have been dying to cast this thing on and like resisting because I wanted to show you the pristine, beautiful balls of palette. But I so want to cast this shawl on. I don't think I'm going to make it through the day without casting on this shawl. So, I'm just super happy about this as well. And then, because, well, Nitpicks was running a promotion. Kitten, what are you eating? Kittens. Nitpicks was running a promotion where, well, first of all, I spent enough to get free shipping, which was exciting and lovely. And also, if you spent the same amount that would get you free shipping and entered in a coupon code, you could also get a free ball of their newest yarn. And I was like, yes, sign me up, please. And so they sent me this. This yarn is quite appropriately named Wonder Fluff. And it is a wonder of fluff. So, This is 70% baby alpaca, 7% merino, and 23% nylon. It's a bulky weight yarn, and it is just so soft and so lofty, because what they do to make this yarn is they actually have, I've been trying to look at it, but I can't even see it myself, so I'm sure you won't be able to see it on the video. But they make like a mesh tube of nylon, and then they actually blow the alpaca and merino into the tube. So it's not really spun at all. It's just like fibers encased in a tube. And so it is so delightfully soft and squishy and lofty, and I can't wait to knit something with this. And I forgot to mention, the colorway they sent me was Thinly Heather, which is this lovely kind of heathered white-gray color. And I'm just so happy. I never turn down free yarn. And this is especially luxurious and soft and squishy. So, it's been a good week for stash acquisitions. So, it's also been a good week in general, except for me feeling a little under the weather. But for my week in review, I just want to mention a little bit about what I was up to last week. So, my husband was on vacation, so we went driving around Pennsylvania a little bit. And we really like to visit Pennsylvania's state parks because there's a lot of really great ones, and it's just generally really beautiful in the state, especially at this time of year, because all the leaves are changing and everything looks gorgeous. So we went to two particularly spectacular places last week. We went to this place the end of my last podcast, I was actually filming when we went to the first of the parks. It's called Kinzu Bridge. I may have said Kinzua last week, but we learned as we were going towards it that it's called Kinzu. So we made sure to pronounce it that way so we didn't sound like those weird outsiders who don't know how anything's pronounced. So, and it's actually called Kinzu Bridge State Park because there was this amazing bridge there. It's like a really old viaduct. One of the world's biggest viaducts it was, I think, or oldest. I can't remember which one. Sadly, in 2003, it was right as they were reconstructing it and restoring it because it had been labeled unsafe after so many years because it is really old. They were rebuilding it, and a tornado blew through, which is not that common for Pennsylvania. That's kind of out of the ordinary because of the mountains and everything. So a tornado blew through and kind of flattened half of the viaduct. And so they were like, well, what do we do? So they took the remaining half of the viaduct, strengthened it, made it up to scratch, and turned it into this amazing skywalk. And I think I inserted a video of walking out onto that skywalk at the end of my last podcast. But I couldn't videotape for very long because as we were walking out onto this thing, it was like over 220 feet, I think, at the end of it. And it was just ridiculously windy. I was worried that the wind was actually going to like blow my phone out of my hands. So I had to put it in my pocket and put it away, stop filming, because I didn't want my phone to go over the edge of a 200 some odd foot skywalk. And I didn't really want myself to go over the edge of that either. I'm a little bit afraid of heights, and so it was honestly pretty terrifying. But it was also really, really cool. And at the end of the skywalk, they have this section that is just floored with a 1-inch piece of glass so that you can actually like stand on it and look down and see how high up you are, which is absolutely terrifying. But my husband and I made a pact, and we held hands and we walked across it really rather quickly, but we did actually walk across the glass. So We weren't as brave as some people who were like standing on the glass, or there was one little girl who was even like jumping on it. That was just terrifying. But we did face our fears and walk across it, and it was pretty awesome. And then we quickly hurried back off of the skywalk because it was honestly rather terrifying. And we hiked a trail that actually goes down to the bottom of the valley, where the remains of the viaduct that was knocked down by the tornado are. They just left the remains there as kind of like a monument to the destruction of the tornado. So we hiked down there, and we could look up at the skywalk, and I think I liked that part a lot better, hiking down and then hiking back up, even though it was more strenuous, and I didn't quite know if I was going to make it back up the hill at one point. It was a lot less terrifying because we could look up at the skywalk instead of think about falling off the skywalk. And we got to go and see some of the debris on the ground from we saw how huge the things were that got knocked down, the pieces of the old viaduct. And it was just amazing. It was just really cool to see. And added to that fact, it was in this gorgeous, mountainous valley in the middle of the northern tier of Pennsylvania, where it's not super populated, and the colors were just at peak. The fall leaves were just gorgeous, and they just opened within the last couple of months a brand new visitors center up there with this steampunky kind of museum that we both really loved, and it was just an awesome time. And we got this little magnet that we put on our fridge. It says, "I survived the height and the hike," because we did both. We went onto the skywalk and we walked down to the bottom of the valley, and so we were happy with that. And then, as if that wasn't enough adventure for our vacation, that was one day. And we did stop at a couple of other state parks on the way up there as well, because they were 3 parks kind of linked together. And they were pretty cool too. We actually, at one of them, the lake is drained because they're working on the dam. And so we actually were walking around in the lake bed and thinking the water would be 20 feet over our heads right now, and this is crazy. It was really, really surreal and weird. But yeah, a couple of days later, we took a day to rest after that adventure, and then we went driving up north again, slightly in a different direction, to go to the Pennsylvania Grand Canyon. That's right, Pennsylvania has a Grand Canyon. It's a little bit different than the nationally known one, but I thought it was just as cool. So, this huge canyon valley, the Pine Creek River Gorge is what it's called, and they have this gorgeous viewing section right off the top of the mountain. You can just drive right up, and it's wonderful. And we saw bald eagles flying below us, which was just crazy. But we also, while we were at the Pennsylvania Grand Canyon, we went hiking down again. So we got a view and a mountainous hike once again, because my husband had been there before. His family went when he was little to the Grand Canyon there, and they hiked down the mountain, which is pretty terrifying because it's steep, and there are steps built into the mountain because it's so steep. I feared for my life. I thought I was going to fall off the mountain. I almost did at one point. But anyway, yeah, so we managed to hike down the mountain and got to the river at the bottom, where my husband proceeded to point out some fossils. The rocks in the river are just covered in fossils. And it was pretty awesome. That's the first time I've ever seen a fossil outside of a museum or something like that. we were just walking around on these rocks, finding fossils. So I had a really fun time with that. I started like, Paul was having to point a lot of the fossils out to me because I didn't really know what I was looking for at first. But by the end of it, I was like, don't point any more out to me. I want to find some myself. And I did. It was really fun. So yeah, that was a super surreal time for us as well because the view was just amazing. So we kept busy over vacation. Additionally, over vacation, we did a lot more work on getting our cats to coexist because the kitten is still new. I call them all kittens. I'm sorry. They're not all kittens. The only kitten we actually have is Agatha. But to me, they're all my little kittens. So, but the newest cat is still very new, and so we've been trying to integrate them more. And as I was saying earlier, Agatha and Esther seem to love playing with each other. They get actually kind of sad when they're not around each other, which is crazy to me because Esther doesn't like cats just in general. She's always hated other cats, and I never imagined that she could get along with any cat, but she loves Agatha. They're both crazy enough to get along, which is why Mary, our third cat, doesn't really like them. But we have been working on integrating them, and Mary has been hissing and making it very clear that they should not chase her, and they are respecting that for the most part. So I think things are going really well in the cat department. So it's been a busy, crazy week, and I honestly haven't done as much knitting as I would have liked to because we were traveling a lot, and because even though I could knit and crochet in the car, I also sometimes got a little car sick, so I couldn't knit or crochet the whole time in the car. But yeah, so I'm setting light goals this week and hoping that I can far surpass it. So one of my goals is to finish ripping back that British driving knuckle glove that I'm working on for Paul. Finish ripping back those 3 fingers so that I can shorten them a little. And then I'm hoping to finish my balaclava and hopefully Paul's balaclava as well. And then I'm really hoping that I can quickly knit up the other Trilobite hat. So those are light goals for this week, but I'm hoping that sets up like low expectations that I can then go far and beyond. That would be great. So I think that's all I have for this week. So thanks for tuning in. Remember, you can find me on Ravelry as Fiber of My Being and on Instagram as Megan Tomkiel. And please go check out the Ravelry group. And thanks for watching. Bye.